Hello folks, welcome to the second episode of our GMAT Sentence Correction tutorial. In today's episode, we are going to cover two very important chapters of the sentence correction section. The first chapter is called Placement of Words and the second chapter is called Redundancy. In our previous video, we learned the importance of meaning in the sentence correction section. We also discussed the best way to cover the GMAT course is through application of concepts. We will do the same today. You are going to face two very important challenge questions which are from actual GMAT test. So let's start. The first chapter deals with placement of words. Now, why is placement of words such an important issue in the GMAT sentence correction section? The reason is, if you take a single word, if you place it at two different places in a single sentence, the meaning of the sentence changes completely. Now, how is that? I will give you an example. Please go through the two statements given in the slide. The first statement states, except for the judicial magistrate, no officials were permitted to issue a warrant. And the second statement says, all officials were permitted to issue a warrant except for the judicial magistrate. Pause the video for a second, analyze both these statements and understand what is the difference between the meanings. Are we done analyzing the question? Did you go through both the statements? Did you find any differences? Okay, let's do it once more together. The first statement has a complete different meaning from the second statement. The first statement means that the judicial magistrate has the power to issue a warrant, and except the judicial magistrate, no one can issue a warrant. However, the second statement means the judicial magistrate does not have the power to issue a warrant. You see, a single word, except, when placed at two different places, can change the meaning of a sentence entirely. This is what will be tested on the GMAT sentence correction test. In this example, we learned that a single word, when placed at two different places in a single sentence, can actually change the meaning of the sentence. But what about clauses? GMAT can play with clauses to change the meaning of a sentence. To understand this concept, we will take another example. Read through the statements 1 and 2 and try to find out which one is the correct one. You have been given the fact that Aviral is the convict and is under trial in the court process. Take your time, pause the video, come back with the correct answer. Are you done analyzing both the statements? Did you find the differences in the meaning in both the statements? The first statement states, Aviral tried to escape the courtroom with Susan, who was unable to prove innocence. Understand this. Who was unable to prove innocence is a clause which modifies Susan in this case in the first statement, which means Susan was the convict who was under the trial of the courtroom. But this was not the correct intended meaning. Let's analyze statement 2. Unable to prove innocence, Aviral tried to escape the courtroom with Susan. Absolutely to the point. This clause, unable to prove innocence, this time modifies Aviral. So you see, the same clause, when placed at two different places, means completely different things. GMAT can actually test you with words as well as clauses. In the next section, we will try to solve a question from the actual GMAT test. We have learned that words and clauses play important factors in terms of placement. To summarize what we have learned from this chapter is that when words and clauses are placed at different places in the same sentence, they can actually change the meaning of the sentence. Be very careful about it. The GMAT never intends to change the meaning of the sentence which is given in the original question stem. So let's take a question from the actual GMAT test itself. Again, please feel free to pause the video, go through the question and try to select the correct answer. Are you done solving this question? Were you able to eliminate all the incorrect options? Remember, this challenge question is from the actual GMAT test. Let's do it once more together. not trusting themselves to choose wisely among the wide array of investment opportunities on the market, stockbrokers are helping many people who turn to them to buy stocks that could be easily bought directly. Now, the question is, who are not trusting themselves? The stockbrokers or the many people mentioned in the question? The intended meaning of this question stem should have been the many people who are not trusting themselves to invest on stock opportunities are turning to the stockbrokers. Now, since the meaning is clear now, let's go to the option analysis part. You see the mark in red? Not trusting themselves is actually trying to modify stockbrokers in the question stem. This means that the stockbrokers are not trusting themselves. This is wrong. That's why option A and option B both are wrong. Any option that incorrectly modifies stockbroker instead of the many people mentioned in the question is wrong. That's why option A and option B both are wrong. Let's move to the next set of options. Option C states, many people are turning to stockbrokers for help from them to buy stocks that could be easily bought directly. The problem with this sentence is that you have already mentioned stockbrokers in the first part of the sentence itself. You don't need an extra from them to emphasize stockbrokers. Thus, this option is also wrong. Let's go for option D. Option D states, many people are turning to stockbrokers for help to buy stocks that easily could have been bought directly. This part, could have been, can be easily replaced with could be easily bought directly. So thus, option D is again wrong. So our final answer is option A was the incorrect option, option B was the incorrect option because they had mistakenly modified stockbrokers instead of many people. Option C was wrong because it had an extra from them, and option D is wrong because it could have been more concise with could be easily bought directly. Thus, the correct option in this question is option E. Were you able to solve this? If you were able to solve this, kudos to you. However, if you weren't able to solve this, don't worry. With sufficient practice, you will be able to solve similar questions within a very short time. This brings us to the end of this module. We have learned two major aspects from this module. The first one is, please pay attention to the meaning of the sentence. And the next one is, be very careful about the placement of words and clauses. In the next segment, we are going to talk about redundancy. What is redundancy and how it can trick you into opting wrong options. Redundancy is one of the easiest chapters you are going to cover on your GMAT sentence correction segment. Redundancy deals with the unnecessary usage of extra words in a given statement. To understand redundancy, let's take an example. Consider the two statements given in the slide. The first statement says, the temperature at Sussex increased by a 10-degree rise. And the second statement says, the temperature at Sussex increased by 10 degrees. Which one do you think is the correct option over here? Pause the video for a second, get back with the correct answer. Are you done solving this problem? Did you analyze both the statements and found a subtle error in either of the statements? Let's do it together. Statement 1 says, the temperature at Sussex increased by a 10-degree rise. And statement 2 says, the temperature at Sussex increased by 10 degrees. We just have an extra word rise in the statement A. Does it have an impact? Is it wrong? Absolutely. Even if you don't use the word rise in statement 1, still it could have delivered the correct meaning of the sentence. Hence, the word rise in the first statement is redundant. You don't need to use it. This is what is redundancy all about. You don't need to use extra words to emphasize on something on the sentence. Sentence must be clear and the meaning should be well intended. Thus, statement 2 over here is the correct option. Since we are done with understanding what redundancy actually is, let's go and solve an actual GMAT question. Remember, redundancy is one of the easiest chapters on the sentence correction segment. Before attempting to solve an actual GMAT question, remember you need to find extra usage of words. This is what redundancy is all about. Also, keep in mind you need to eliminate wrong options rather than finding the correct answer. Let's look at the question. This is an actual GMAT question. Try to solve it by eliminating the wrong options. Pause the video for a second and come back with the right answer. Are you done solving the problem? Were you able to identify the incorrect usage of extra words? If not, let's do it together. Let's find what are the errors in the 4 incorrect options. Option A states, after the test format was changed, scores subsequently dropped by more than 25% decrease. Now you see, the problem is you have already used the word dropped. You don't need to use another word decrease to identify the decrease in the score. So thus, the decrease is redundant in any of the given options that contains both the word dropped and the word decrease. Thus, option A, C and D all are wrong. If you go to the next stage, let's find if there are other options that contains redundant words. If you go for option E, it states, after the test format was changed, scores subsequently dropped post change by more than 25%. Again, you have already used the word after, so you don't need to use the word post change in this option. Hence, option E is also wrong. To conclude, our correct option would be option B, which states after the test format was changed, scores subsequently dropped by more than 25%. It doesn't have extra usage of words. Hence, through redundancy, we can actually conclude option B is the correct option. Remember that redundancy is one of the most easiest thing that you will need to cover on a GMAT sentence correction segment. Whenever you see extra usage of words, strike off the option. This is how redundancy works. In our next chapter, we are going to cover concision, another important aspect of the GMAT sentence correction segment. Till then, revise this video, find more challenging problems on the internet and try to solve them. Within a very short amount of time, you will be able to cover the entire sentence correction methodology.